property is a serious business and you can't do it all on your own. So if you don't get a good team around you, you are doomed to fail. So you could buy the best property on the street in the best possible area, and you could buy it for the best possible price. But if you don't get it filled, if it's not repaired, refurbished, maintained to a decent standard at a decent price, you're not going to make a profit. And all you're going to end up doing is putting all your time, all your money, all your effort, and more importantly, all your sort of like life energy into something that gives you nothing back. And that's why you will fail if you don't have a team behind you. I'm going to talk to you in this podcast about my journey, I suppose, in a way, but from a different angle, about how through investing long distance, I recognized how important that team was. And that's what I want to share with you today. So my name is Vicki Wusche, and this is a Wealthy Life podcast. If you've been following along, you will know that we've covered off all the mindset. We've been talking about property. I'm now into a phase where I'm peppering in some guest interviews to sort of inspire you more along the way. Please make sure that you like, follow, and even leave a review for the podcast. It really helps other listeners to know why they should be listening and that this is a podcast to watch out for, of course, providing that you've enjoyed it, which I hope that you do and find it useful. So let's get back to the point in focus here. It's about teams. And depending on where you live in the country, or even what country you live in, there is going to be a distance between you and your investment properties. And the reason for this is, without being funny, unless you are uber affluent and you have plenty of money and you're not worried about the cash flow and you're following some other sort of strategy, the main reason you're going to be investing in property is because you want to leverage your money, so invest your money into a property with the combination of a mortgage in order to make a profit. That profit is going to provide more cash into your family, and you will be doing that for a reason. We've talked all about that. And therefore, the chances are, unless you're young and you've decided to move to your investment area, you are going to be living in one location which suits you because maybe you have a job or a business, or you have family members nearby, or that you have just reached a point in your life where you can afford to live where you would love to live. Super. Where it makes mathematical sense for you to invest could be a completely different area. And so we lived at the time in Greater London, and we decided to invest in the Northwest. And we were talking about, on a good day with no roadworks, maybe a 3.5 hour drive north. We had times when we set off and it was a car accident or something on the motorway, and we were talking 6 to 8 hours to get there. That is not the sort of trip that you can make there and back in a day. That involves usually at least one overnight. It's not the sort of location that if your tenant says, oh, I've locked myself out, you can get in the car and pop round the corner, change a light bulb, drop off a spare key. And so you are going to need a team. You're going to need trades that you could trust. And I realized that I was going to have to build a long distance relationship with these people so that they would take me seriously. And without being, I don't know what the word for it is, insert your word here, funny about being a woman or being blonde, particularly moving to the Northwest, there were comments and jibes about, why are you, a woman, investing in property? Why aren't you just home with the family? They were slightly ruder than that at times, and you'll get that, particularly if you're a woman, and you'll get that if you're a southerner heading north, whether you're male or female, and you'll get that if there is one whiff that you are any form of newbie, any aspect of you lacking experience, whoever you go to, people will pick up on it. And so it's about relationship building. And a bit later on, in a couple of weeks, you're going to hear from Dina, and she's going to talk about also how important building those relationships were with people in a different context, but building relationships with people was core to her success. And I believe it was core to my success. I needed a core team that I could rely on to act on my behalf, even while I was at a much greater distance from the property. And so the bits that make you money when you invest in property, yes, you've got to pick the right property. But if you picked the right property and you didn't get the right loan or you didn't get the right tenant, then even if you've got the most amazing property, you're not going to make money. So let's start off with a broker. Now, a broker is someone you could have anywhere in the country. They don't need to be local. You don't need to see them face to face. And post the pandemic, we're so used to doing things online. If you want to know what they look like, you could have a Zoom meeting with them. In the UK, when we work with a broker, they have a whole process that they have to go through up front before that they can start having the conversation with you about what actual mortgage lender they can support you with. In a sense, it's their form of due diligence on you. They want to know your personal circumstances before they can make the best or give you the best advice, make the best decision for you as to which lender for you to go to. So building this relationship with them in some ways is a little bit easy because you have that first conversation. Either you like them or you don't like them and you move on to somebody else. But you're going to need to put in potentially 3 hours up front with this person to go through all the forms that they're going to need and everything else. Now, get this right the first time round, and this will save you hours swapping brokers as you move through building your portfolio. And you'll be able to go back to them a year later, just update the details, have a quick conversation, and off you go again. Again, in the UK, there's a difference between tied brokers, panel brokers, and whole of market. So be very clear about what access to lenders your broker has. Are they on set panels tied to a system where they are on the panel to a lender and the lender will only work with them on the panel, which means they'll only go to a specific, if you like, aisle of lenders? Or are they completely open to the whole market? Again, in probably in a couple of months from now, I'm going to get on Jay, one of the brokers that I work with, him and his team. And that should be a bit of a high-powered, fiery conversation there. So the broker, meet once, meet well, get all the paperwork in place, understand what they want from you each time you've got a lender. Easy peasy. You have a folder, it's all sorted. The second one is going to be maybe more of a challenge in that you need a local letting agent. So I know there are going to be lots of online ways of doing things. It's the same as if you sell the property, you can sell it through various online agencies like Purple Bricks, etc. But if you don't have somebody local who knows the area, how are you going to know that you are preparing your property in a way that local tenants are going to like? So we came up from London to the northwest, and of course we're going to want carpets and we're going to want curtains, but that's not the style up there. They want laminate floor on the ground floor pretty often because they've got a dog. And this was long before there's the new changes in British legislation which say you have to allow someone to have a dog if they want one. I always let people have dogs and just made sure that my tenancy agreement covered it. So you don't really want to be putting down carpet on the ground floor. They don't want curtains, they want blinds, and they definitely don't want nets. So understanding the needs of local people. Now, some of that you could do if you're extremely good at your observation skills by going up and down the street and looking at what the fronts of the streets look like. You know, do people need off-road parking? And so if they turned their front garden into a parking space because they can't get it in the street otherwise. So then you're thinking about drop curbs and stuff like that. Do people actually sit in their front gardens. So some of the rows of Victorian terraces we used to invest in, there would be literally an afternoon party in the street where people would bring their chairs out. They would sit either in the front yard or even in the pavement and watch the children playing in quieter side roads. So understanding the area is crucial, and who better to do that for you than your letting agent? Controversial statement here. I almost think that your letting agent is more important than the loan, because the loan, they're going to lend you the money. Pretty much in the UK, everybody's going to lend you 75% of the purchase price. They're going to lend you within, let's say at most 0.3, 0.4, maybe even 0.5 of the going rate. So it might cost you 0.5% more. They're going to have fees, and if they've got a better rate, they'll have a higher fee, and you can work all that out. But once you've worked it all out, there is very little in it between all the different lenders. Where you are going to make a difference is with the letting agent. Now, two ways. One is what they charge you. So frequently 10% plus VAT is normal for out of London. You might even get it as low as 8%, or once you're in London and in city areas, or doing things like HMOs, houses of multiple occupancy, you can be looking at in excess of 15%. Now, I would look at this business and say to myself, how many properties does this letting agent manage? Ask that question. You want them to have enough that you know that they can get in the income and afford to keep a team, and that team has got the experience to handle your property. You need someone who is doing regular inspections. You need someone who understands gas safety certificates, electrical certificates, and have they got the systems there? You need someone who handles repairs, as in taking in the calls from the tenants. Have they got some sort of automated online report collating software system? Who deals with the accounts? How quickly will you get your money after the tenant has paid their money? Do they hold on to it and send it out once a month? Which is great, but then that means that they're getting interest for a month on your money, not you. Have such a deep conversation with your letting agent. Your broker needs to know you so they can get the advice that they need to provide for you. You need to know the letting agent so that the letting agent, you can be sure that they're doing a good job for you. You need to know that you can trust your letting agent. And that's going to feature quite a lot towards the end of the year. I will do a series on that, because there's something brewing at the moment that I won't tell you about. But when that has finished brewing and has boiled over, quite probably, I'm going to share all of that through the podcast as well. So your letting agent, most important thing, that they are local, that they know the tenants, that they understand the types of properties that the tenants want to get into. They understand the types of properties that certain types of tenants can afford to rent, which also will lead to area. And always that they are up to date on all of the legislation that needs to be going on. It is a minefield, particularly in the UK, I hope in other countries, in terms of things like health and safety and protecting the tenants' rights and all of that sort of stuff. I mean, we are literally part immigration force, part water board, part gas board, part electric board, part mini bank with the deposit, and solicitors in terms of all the contracts. All of that, all of those skills need to reside into your letting agent. And as I've mentioned, legals, then obviously there is going to be a solicitor involved, somebody who handles what's called the conveyancing. So typically the solicitor that you engage will be determined by the lender. And the reason for that is that the solicitor often plays a dual role. They not only act for you, between you and the vendor of the property, but they also act between you and the lender. So you and the lender have a relationship and a contract through the mortgage, and you and the vendor, the seller, have a relationship through the contract of the sale. And they'll often play this dual role for you. So that means that they come via a panel. So often when you're going to go out and get a loan, a mortgage, the mortgage company will have a panel of pre-approved solicitor companies that they will work with. If you can, and you get yourself into a rhythm where you tend to be lending or borrowing rather from the same lender, then see if you can always focus on using the same solicitors. I got to a stage where sometimes I would be buying, I don't know, maybe 6, 8, 10 properties in say a 6-month period. If I can use the same solicitor and I can use the same, maybe 1 or 2 people, you always get the same person, but 1 or 2 people, when you ring up, you know, the receptionist, oh, hi, how are you? You get put through to the solicitors. That's if you can get through on the phone. And if not, and you're doing it via email, you get to know their rhythm. So most of the solicitors that I work with, I know that their rhythm is that they won't tend to answer during the day. At the end of the day, they'll deal with all the emails that have come in from the day. So you can often expect sort of 4 to 6 o'clock, you're getting a bundle of emails come back through. And that's where they're answering and batting out all the questions to be dealt with overnight. So do your best to collate what solicitor you work with. If that's not possible, then again, you'll learn how they work, and more experience will show that you understand what they're going to ask you. And a lot of the information is very similar to the sort of information that the broker asks. They're going to want ID and everything. I'm not sure that for me, a solicitor is a crucial member of my team when I'm buying, because, as I say, I don't have free choice. It's decided by the lender. I do want a good solicitor, so I might do a bit of Googling about them and see how they answer the phone and see how they answer the queries, because they can delay things enormously, but there's not a lot you can do about it, and they offer similar prices, etc. What I would be interested in is if I was buying for cash, then obviously I had free reign of who I use, and I could then hone in on one solicitor and build a good relationship with them. But in my business, where I work for clients, I'm actually buying properties or project managing the buying of properties for a lot of people. It really helps for me, again, if I can collate. It would be fairly unusual if you were going to buy 6 to 8 properties in 6 months. You'd probably go insane from the level of paperwork, whereas that's actually something that I do all the time. So again, if I can steer my clients into 1, 2, or 3 solicitor companies based on their lenders, it makes it easier because I'm putting quite a lot of business through that solicitor, and then I can get in touch with people that are more senior when things start to drag, and they do drag. And you've got to bear in mind, again, since the pandemic, that a lot of solicitors or conveyancers who used to work part of a team in an office now work from home, and their supervision is pretty much online, or maybe popping into the office once a week. And that makes a big difference. So make sure you diary and you chase them. Next member of the team, the estate agent. Now, a bit controversial, but I tend to think of these people a bit more like the shark side of stuff. So they will go where the money is, and they will have very little loyalty to you, because the job of an estate agent is to sell the property. I'll do that one again, sorry. The job of the estate agent is to sell the property. Their contract is with the vendor, the seller of the property, not with you. And so their client is the one that they are looking to get the best possible price. Now, I'm completely fine with that. But what I like to know is how many other people are involved, how long it's been on the market. And if you can build a relationship with an estate agent, then you can be in a position where you can have these sort of more open conversations, because it doesn't affect the price that you're going to pay. It just actually speeds up whether, as a professional investor, I'm even going to bother to view this property or run the numbers on this property, never mind whether I'm going to put an offer in. So I was fortunate, and again, as I told you, we were a good 3.5 hours from home, to develop an incredible relationship with a couple of estate agents, where I would visit up there every 3 or 4 weeks on arrival, because it'd been a long journey. It was high. We'd have a coffee. I'd use their bathroom, and then they would hand over an envelope, basically, of keys. And over the next day and a half, I would visit approximately 20 or more, 24 sometimes, empty homes. and then return the keys, and probably have even put an offer on before I started to drive home. Now, it's not like that now. You don't tend to be given the keys, and in some senses, there aren't as many repossessions around, and that's a good thing, because when there are a lot of repossessions around, you know that people are struggling. You know that there's something going wrong in the economy. So I don't see that at the moment, and therefore, no matter what the media is saying, I feel fairly confident. And you've got to bear in mind that I started my business in 2008, and that's when we were just going into the first global meltdown following the demise of the American banks, Freddie Mae, Fannie Mac, or Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, something like that, daft names anyway. All of these banks and Lehman Brothers and everything collapsing in America. And that's how I cut my teeth. So being at a time like this now, where we're talking about interest rates going up and all the markets slowing down, it's sort of a bit water off my duck's back, because it doesn't affect me, because I've seen a lot worse. So with the estate agent, remember who their customer is. They need you to place an offer, of course. Remember that when you go in there because you've been on a course or you've listened to a podcast or read a book and it says make a cheeky low offer, they probably just look at you like you are a junior, a small fish that they could just snap up and spit out, or maybe even you're such a small fish that they're not even going to bother to go after you. Be very aware of how you present yourself. You really have one opportunity to make a good impression on an estate agent. Normally when you walk in and observe an estate agent from outside, there will be a junior and there will be a senior, and what you want to do is work out which is which, and then you can work out who the rest are. Often the junior is the one who will sit there and say hello to people as they walk in. You really don't want to get caught by that person. What you want to do is be in a position where you get to have your first conversation with someone more senior. How you do that is observation and relationship building. I'm not going to spend time explaining all that to you now, but if you pull that off, that is an incredible bonus to you and the relationship that you will have. I have never paid a brown envelope. I have never bribed an estate agent. However, in the days, I have bought wine and a box of chocolates to the estate agents that I have particularly good relationships with for every completion. I buy my letting agent team, even though I'm their client, I buy them a Christmas box every year, and sometimes I buy them presents throughout the year. Now, the reason for that is because I want them to know that I am grateful for the good service that they give me. If they're not giving me good service, then I'll move to somebody else. And that's the same thing with all of these people. If you don't get on with the broker, if you don't feel that you're getting good loans, go out in the market and find yourself another one. If you don't have a good letting agent, or worse, you have a really good letting agent for a while, and then their service drops off, or they start, missing things, or their service goes down, speak to them. But if you don't get the response that alters that, then you change letting agents. You've got to remember that you can have a relationship with someone, but it's on a business footing. You can still be friendly and think of them, I'm very friendly or even friends with my letting agent. But at the bottom line, it's a business relationship. And if it's not doing your business good, then you need to move somewhere else. Solicitors, as I say, they sort of tend to come and go unless you're going to buy with cash or buy frequently enough. But see if you can group them. Again, always be polite. Don't tend to send a gift to my solicitors or my brokers for that matter, because they make a lot of money out of us. But I do put effort into that relationship with the estate agent. I do put that effort into the relationship with the lettings team. And of course, another one to mention here are the trades. Now, it depends on the strategy that you're following, how hands-on you are. But for most repairs with properties, I would tend to go through my lettings team, because that's what they're there for. There's a difference. When I am being Vicki, who works with you to help you build a portfolio, then my job is to manage the repairs and, of course, any refurbishment that we might do to a property. When I am being Vicki the landlord, like you, somebody who's building a property portfolio because they want to make cash and not have to put a lot of time into the business, then I want to leverage the time of my letting agent and get them to handle the repairs. Now, for that to work, you've got to have a fair understanding of what the market rate for a gas certificate or an electrical certificate or a plumber to go around and fix a repair. I tend to look at the moment that we're paying about £65 on a call out up north. Of course, the prices will be different in the south. And what you've got to look at there is that your letting agent, if they are handling this repair, is probably going to stick 10% on. Now, if I get an email saying, Vicki, just to let you know, we are 1 month out from needing to renew the gas certificate. Would you like me to arrange this? The answer is obviously going to be yes. And then they go ahead, they trigger the gas certificate being arranged, they bring it back into the office, they check it, they make sure that the tenant has a copy, they make sure that I have a copy. If that's cost me somewhere between £65 and £85 for £6 to £8 to pay somebody in an office, a PA, to do that level of work, think of that as an hourly rate. And that's why it's always blown my mind about letting agents as a business. But that small amount of money is paying somebody's time in the office to do all of that admin for you. Your time is worth a lot more than that. That's sort of, without being rude, that's minimum wage style payment to do all that admin. Are you only a minimum wage earner? And the answer should be, of course not. Once we've got through the trades, and of course, if you are going to do developments and builders, then I don't know if I would do all of this particularly long distance. Or like I did, I was buying a good number of properties. I was either buying my own property and 1 or 2 for clients at the same time. So I had a reason to go north every couple of weeks. And therefore I could check on them. But I also still did it with the support of the letting agents team. I involved the letting agents team in whatever I was doing. And the last ones I would bring up would be mentors. I could not have done what I have done without the mentors that I've had. Now, I would say probably, and I do have some inside jokey style conversations with people who I know and who know the training that we've done, about how expensive it's been, about whether it's been any good. And there's a bit of me that can now say with hindsight that the basics could be learned independently, online and through practice. And that's definitely one of the things that I've done for all of my clients. I've created an online course that you can go through at your own time. There's about 30 hours of work involved. And because of my background as a university lecturer, I know how to create a learning experience, which not necessarily all these training companies would have proper educators in there. But I've created a system where you're going through logically, you do a little piece of work, you listen to it, you go away and you practice. You listen to a bit more, you go away and practice. And there's supporting materials in there and bits of homework in between, so that you are not just sitting passively, which you often do in the training courses. That doesn't mean to say that having a community isn't a nice thing to have, but I think that probably the best mentors I've had have been right at the front about mindset, making me prepared for what is actually quite a challenging business. It's about risk. It's about taking on a lot of debt. It's about money, and those can all be triggers for people. And do it well and you'll be successful. And ironically, success rather than the fear of failure can also be a trigger for a lot of people. And that's why when I started recording this podcast, the first 50 odd episodes were all about the mindset. Don't get that right, then everything else is going to be so much harder. If you need it, then what you need is a mentor, maybe to provide accountability to support you. But actually over the years, and I think I've been doing this, what did I say, 15 years, or is it longer? Anyway, a long time. Since probably 2010, I've been doing this full time for clients. Yes, there's some mindset in there as we reach challenging points. Yes, there's the accountability because we have a call today. When are we going to speak next? In 2 weeks. Are you going to get the work done by then? Yes. And then we have the call and we check that work is done. And if it's not done, it's usually an unresolved mindset issue. But I would say that it's the business mentoring that is the most important thing. Property is just a flavor of business. You need a property expert, somebody who understands property to be that mentor for you. But for me, the property business mentoring or the property business training has been the thing that I would have loved to have had earlier on in my career, rather than 3-day weekends listening to strategies that are something I could have read about in a book. And frequently when those 3-day weekends are bringing everybody back in and you may be at a higher level and everybody's starting off at the lower level again. So the whole of the first day is sort of catch up. You get maybe content on the second day, and the third day is wrap up and let me sell you something else. So looking at where the value is, could you just read a book? And if you want to look at the strategies, then I wrote a book called Using Other People's Money, How to Invest in Property, and we'll put that link in the show notes for you. But that book alone would just give you an overview of all of the strategies. At the end of this, you want to be doing a first buy to let, so that you cut your teeth on something that is relatively low risk, that is relatively good return, and that will enable you to build this team that we've been speaking about. So the other thing is, because I've mentioned about mentoring and business support and learning things online, is the course that I created, How to Be a Successful Property Investor. We'll also put the links to that page in the website here. And it's something that is a very reasonable price. You're looking at less than £1,000. That includes the entire course. It includes all the paperwork that would go with it. If you're in the UK, then I will send you a couple of the supporting books to go with it. And you get 2 hours with me. You get some time at the beginning so that we can talk through where you are in your journey and what you need to focus on. We can use half an hour, depending on where you are in your journey up front. And then there is at least another hour and a half at the end of the course to help you plan that step out so that you can leave the program feeling confident. And one of the mentors I will get you to listen to at some point in the future, Annabelle, full-time nurse, mother of 4 children under 8, did that course, became a mentee, and is now the owner of 3 buy-to-let properties, and more importantly, has moved her entire family from an inner London flat out to the country to a 4-bedroom property, all because of the work that we've done together and her intense commitment and determination. She's a marvel. I will save her for you shortly. So it's been a podcast about how important your team is. And dare I say it, that you could fail without a good team behind you. You could find the right property. You might even get a good loan. But if you don't get good trades, you don't especially get a good letting agent. If you don't have the right support through the right type of mentor, remember that it's going to make your life so much harder. And I speak to people time and time again that said, oh, I wasn't sure whether I wanted to invest in property. My parents did, and they hate property, and it was such a bad time for them. And then when you look at what they did it off their backs. They didn't have anybody supporting them. They did it all the wrong ways. And so it's not really that property is the problem. It's how you do it that is the problem. Getting your team behind you is absolutely crucial. So my name is Vicki Wusche. I hope that I have put a great deal of whoosh in your property business this time round to explain to you how important the team is. There is a copy of the book, Using Other People's Money, How to Invest in Property, that will go through all the strategies, and the course that I will put the links for in the show notes actually will give you the 2 books, Using Other People's Money and Make More Money from Property, because those are the 2 companion books that go with it. I wish you every success. Please follow, review, rate, make sure that you're here for the next episode, when I'm going to be talking about the question of, can you actually go away and leave your portfolio behind? Can you take holidays? Because that was why I started, because I wanted holidays, and that's what we'll have a look at. So my name is Vicki Wusche. Thank you very much for listening. I will see you next week.